football, and we'll talk Michigan State's game against Indiana, and then we'll just do the rest of it tomorrow and bring the part two just for the sake of time. So, all right. So yeah, Michigan obviously played quite the game against Nebraska in Lincoln. Turned out to be a good game. Obviously, Michigan started out ahead 13-0, I believe, going into the half. I think they're up 13-0 at halftime. And defense looked as good as I've seen them play all year. They were not letting it. And Adrian Martinez is a guy that can create things with his legs if he needs to. And we saw more of that in the second half, obviously. But I was impressed with Nebraska's grit. And I think Nebraska, right up there with Texas A&M, is probably the best unranked team in college football. I think they've had a really crap – I mean, you take away that fluke loss to Illinois.
Michigan State.
Yeah, and they lose in overtime by 3 to Michigan State. They lose by 7 to Oklahoma, who's like number 4 in the country. I don't think Oklahoma's all that special, but I think Nebraska is quite the team. And I think, if things didn't shake out the way they have, I think they'd be easily a top 25 team right now.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of figured at halftime, I was hoping they wouldn't, but you kind of figured that Michigan had an opportunity to be up maybe like 21-0 or 24-0 if everything kind of came together. They had some touchdowns that were they were stopped twice down toward the goal line, so they had to settle for a couple field goals. So that was frustrating. So if they had a chance to go up like 21-0, 24-0, that probably would have taken the air out of Nebraska a little bit more. The defense, it was clicking on all cylinders. Nebraska kind of got the option going a little bit in the second half. They just made some big plays. That's really what it was. If you take away like 5 plays in the third quarter, I think it was, Michigan was still holding them to like nothing, basically nothing. So they just made some big plays downfield, which when we talked about it, we kind of figured they would, whether it be Martinez. It was going to be Martinez making some sort of play, whether it be with his legs or with his arm. I think he only ran for like 40 yards, 45 yards, something like that.
38 actually.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it's not like he really killed them with his legs. He made some plays. He had a touchdown run, or 2 touchdowns.
Well, you take away his 20-yard run, and he had 7 carries for 18 yards, which means they put him continuous.
So Michigan bottled him up for the most part, but he definitely made some plays with his arm. And they had some good play calls. I mean, like I said, Scott Frost runs a good offense. Like he has some really creative plays, but they again just do some of the dumbest. It's just a poorly coached, unfundamental team at times. Like Martinez just decides to turn the ball over at the most inopportune times.
The fumble. Why is he trying to? You got to go down in that situation.
Go down. And then and his excuse was like, "Oh, I thought the play was over. Did the whistle blow?"
Yeah,
the whistle
literally taught from elementary school rocket football to be like, you play until the whistle blows.
So go down once you got the first down too. Just don't expose the ball. Great play by Brad Hawkins. I mean, we'll take that if you're Michigan. So great play there, but it's just Nebraska continues to just find ways to lose, and they're kind of in that spot right now. And it sucks for them, and it sucks for for Scott Frost. I don't like Scott Frost, so I don't really care. But it does stink for them. Can we talk? The officiating was horrendous
for both teams.
It was both teams. Some of the worst officiating I've seen.
Wow, they should not have a job the rest of the year.
That was horrible. Like the one that blew my mind.
The Jim Harbaugh had to use a timeout, and then just for them to look at something that was pretty much obvious. Like
was one of the more obvious ones. It was, what was it? It was third down, right? It was 3rd and 1 or whatever. Haskins gains like 4 yards. Like it's not even close. And then they called it. They like respotted the ball and said it was 4th down, like where the ball was originally snapped. I'm like, what happened here? So that was bad. I thought the one pass interference they called on Nebraska was bad. That they called when AJ Henning was going down the sideline. If Henning had fought for the ball more, it probably would have been pass interference, but he didn't fight for the ball.
The other thing is how touchdowns are reviewed, and this was obviously against Nebraska, but like the handoff from McNamara where his knee fell before he handed it off. I'm like, how do you don't see that too when you're reviewing the play? Like he obviously
Nebraska had to like force them to review that one too.
Scott Frost walked out, and the announcers are like, "What is he doing?" And I'm like, "I know exactly what he's doing."
I thought he was down live. I was like, yeah, he might have been down.
Yeah,
it stinks. But so poor officiating. I'm really actually happy because Cade McNamara kind of said something after the game when they interviewed him on the field. He said no disrespect to other Michigan teams, but he said other Michigan teams I've been on would not have won this game. They had a lot going against them. I mean, that was the first time, and he had a lot going against him. I mean, I thought he played an overall pretty good game because he just he'd done what he'd done all year, controlled the game, didn't make too many mistakes. He missed
was overdue for his first pick, so he did finally get that.
It was overdue. He forced it. He wasn't going to go the whole year without throwing an interception. Yeah. So, but that was the first time right after that when Nebraska scored, like the next play or 2 plays later or whatever it was. That was the first time Michigan been down all year. So to see them respond there was awesome. And to see them respond again after Nebraska scored after that, I believe as well, was really cool to see. I don't know. It still worries me. The passing game still has to come along more. The running game finally started to make some bigger plays again. Hassan Haskins had that huge run, and then Blake Corum had the long touchdown run, which is nice.
That offensive line seemed to be able to push them around, and our defensive line was ranked number 1 by PFF of all college football teams.
Yeah. Hayden Hutchinson's still wrecking every game. So
and Ajabo was effective. Hinton and Mozzie Smith were really effective in that game.
Yeah, they didn't run the ball very well. They might have had 100 yards rushing Nebraska, but it wasn't. Anyway.
Well, just knowing what I've just seen the week before when they beat, Northwestern 56-7, like Jacques Yant went off against them. Like Ramir Johnson had a good game. Adrian Martinez was able to run. They blew it up in the run game, and Michigan's defense looks stout. Like their secondary still has has concerns.
Yep.
I think there are some quarterbacks like CJ Stroud that could absolutely torch us.
Well, I'm worried. The first time they're going to be really tested is going to be by Michigan State. Because Michigan State has 2 really legit receivers and a third one that's not bad. I'm not sold on Peyton Thorne necessarily, but he can make the throws downfield, right? In the past, I mean, CJ Vedral or whatever his name is, Vedral can't throw downfield. So that was their other quarterback problem. Martinez doesn't have an incredible arm, so he's not really threatening downfield. His legs are a bigger part of his game. So, but that's going to be the first time they're really going to be tested because, they have bye week next week, which is a good time for a bye because it sounds like some guys are banged up. They played like 5 different guards this week because they got some guys hurt. I mean, Reese Atterbury was in there.
Carson Barnhart and Reese Atterbury are both in there at the same time. That was interesting.
That was scary. But it was nice to see that, I didn't really notice until someone said something, I was like, oh, okay.
So Atterbury only did 6 snaps, but Barnhart played, I think, 40 plus.
And that's nice to see that it's like, okay, he played a lot this year just because they've blown some teams out, but like he hadn't really played in like a legit game. I didn't really notice that big of a difference. I mean, McNamara took his first sack this week too, which you figured was coming as well. So I don't know. It was just really good to see in a tough environment against a team they were probably better than. It was pretty clear, like through the first half, that I think I thought Michigan was the better team, but they took Nebraska's best shot for the most part, and they kept punching back, and they made enough plays, and that's how you win on the road. I mean, it doesn't need to be pretty on the road at night, especially with.
You just take those dubs when you can get them on the road for sure, especially against Big Ten competition. Like it doesn't matter who you are. College football is college football. Anything can happen any given Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, Bama just lost to an unranked team.
Definitely feasible, and
so things can happen.
Yeah. So let's talk about Michigan State real quick here. Then, do they just continue to roll when they have to play Indiana, or do they lay an egg?
I think Indiana's going to pose some problems. I just don't really see Indiana's offense scoring enough points because I think Michigan State is explosive. Kenneth Walker's still rolling pretty good.
We're talking about him for Heisman contention.
Yeah, I mean, they just keep making big plays. So if Indiana can keep the ball in front of them and limit the big plays, they're going to be okay. But
I always notice that with Kenneth Walker, he is a guy that will have some 30-plus yard run and then he'll lose 2 yards or he gets stops at the line for stuff like. I just feel like he's like an every other carry kind of guy or an every 3 carry kind of guy.
Yep. And the other thing, like Jalen Naylor had that massive game last week, but he had like 4 catches for like 210 yards. So it's all big plays, right? So nothing against big plays. You take them if you're Michigan State all day long, but their offense has been predicated on getting the big plays downfield on some trick plays, and just some pure just bombs. They've got 2 really fast receivers and they use them. I think I would probably pick Michigan State in that game for sure. But Indiana's, I don't know, they're not the same. It, it's kind of proving they're kind of my biggest proof that last year, I wouldn't say last year all of it was a fluke, but a lot of last year was kind of like a weird fluke COVID thing.
Yeah.
They're my biggest like point of emphasis. But but they're still going to pose more problems than say Rutgers, in my opinion. So
Yeah, I'm looking at. I mean, obviously Indiana's weapon is their tight end Peyton Hendershot.
sure.
He's been pretty good, and I think Penix is hurt, isn't he?
Yeah, I think so. He might be playing. I think he's hurt though.
Carr's the best running back, and they don't have the, like you mentioned, they don't have the offensive firepower that Michigan State does.
Yeah.
So their defense is going to have to just, like you said, eliminate the big play. Don't let Naylor or Reed go over top. Try to limit Kenneth Walker's 20-yard carries to just the occasional 4 or 5, and see if that don't break defense can step in for you.
Yeah, I don't really see it happening. I feel like Michigan State will win by a couple touchdowns in the end, but it could be a good game. So we'll see. I don't know. It's going to set up a crazy game. Halloween, hopefully. I mean, Michigan's obviously still got to get through Northwestern, but they get them at home after a bye. And that would be nuts. If both those teams are going to be undefeated going in. That'd be pretty special.
Yeah.
Dangerous time if you're in the East thing.
Well, that same day, right? Like they could have Ohio State would be playing Penn State too. I think that same week.
I think
the same week that Michigan State and Michigan play each other, Ohio State and Penn State play. So when is the last time that's happened where 4 teams in the top 10 of
that could really change the playoff landscape too, because if all those teams are undefeated, well, Penn State and Ohio State should both have a loss.
Well, they already do have a loss each.
Well, yeah, they both do, but I'm not thinking they're going to lose another game up until that point. But this is where like Michigan can kind of like take control of the East, if you think about it though, because obviously Penn State already has a Big Ten loss. I know it's to Iowa in the West, but they already have a Big Ten loss. So if they lose to Ohio State, at that point, Big Ten championship rolls through Ann Arbor if they can beat Michigan State.
Yeah, there's a lot of ifs that come up because then you still have to bank on like Michigan State or Penn State even winning and upsetting Ohio State just to get them out of that race. And then you just have to pretty much
other than you just have to go beat Ohio State at home at the end of the year.
I don't see it. I don't see it right now. I don't see it.
I don't either, but I mean, Ohio State is flawed. They've been flawed in the past though, and they've killed us. So
I just think where Michigan is the weakest is their corners on defense. And I think of Olave and Garrett Wilson going nuts. So unless they can run Moten and Hill and Hawkins on the back and kind of run a 3 safety look on them to try to prevent those deep balls, that's the only thing I can rely on trying to stop a Jamon Green or Vincent Gray from getting beat, or DJ Turner.
It's concerning. You're going to have to score points in that game if we're thinking about it, right? At least right now.
But Ohio State is obviously, they've shown that they give up points. That defense is not
points. Defense but they definitely go score points. So I don't know. It's the Big Ten.
Anything can happen.
Really, and the Big Ten East is going to be really interesting in the next 3 or 4 weeks because, like you said, okay, so Penn State and Ohio State are going to play each other. So one of them is going to have 2 losses. Penn State could have 2 losses in the Big Ten, right? But then Michigan State has to play both those teams as well. And if Michigan State just beats one of them, this could be crazy. Like it reminds me of like 2016 a little bit. Hopefully it ends.
It would be nice. It would be nice to finally get a Big Ten championship, man. Even if we have 1 loss, I think there's a chance that if you beat Ohio State, that we can even be in a college football playoff conversation.
Mm-hmm. There was a scenario now though, just because people think of scenarios I saw on Twitter. It was like, if Michigan is undefeated going into Ohio State and Ohio State has the 1 loss to Oregon, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they lose and Ohio State goes to the Big Ten championship, Michigan doesn't, but they lose by like 3 points. Does Michigan have an argument as a 1-loss second Big Ten team in the college football playoff?
I guess it would depend how badly they lose to Ohio State.
That's what I mean. If they lose by 3, I think they have an argument. The question is, does Bama have another loss? Right? Because if Bama has a second loss, then because then Georgia probably goes. Mm-hmm. And then there's not going to be 2 SEC teams. So I mean, obviously, there's a lot that has to happen. I wouldn't be surprised if Michigan still goes 9-3. So
college football is just more fun to me right now. I love the NFL, and I typically am more of an NFL guy. But like right now, just knowing the Lions are just in a rebuild situation, college football and Michigan's played some pretty good football thus far. It's coming down to the wire. It looks like.
I'm just happy that like they're finally winning. Like it's back to like where they're winning games where they're the better team, right?
If they won some games that it's like you typically worry, like if they go to Lincoln, do they win that game? They go to Wisconsin. We don't typically win that game. So we're also winning games that we haven't in a while.
Yeah. They're winning the road games. They're winning the games where it's like, man, I know Wisconsin and Nebraska aren't amazing, but like, yeah, you're right. They probably lose those games in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Even that Rutgers game, it's like, they sometimes don't make that play at the end of the year, at the end of the game, when they're in a game where they probably didn't play the best, right? Where they kind of laid an egg a little bit in the second half across the board. But the defense stepped up and made the play. This week, the offense started making plays in the second half, and when the defense was struggling a little bit, and the defense finally made plays at the end. So I don't know. I think it's a pretty good team, and they're really confident right now. And I think they just got to continue with that confidence. It looks like just a way better coached team, especially on defense.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Mike Macdonald, man.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I used to be a big fan of Don Brown too when he first came in too. So I get it.
His stubbornness wore on me. That's what it was.
Yeah, and the thing is, Mike Macdonald just seems like he has more answers for problems, right? So he's got more things you can go to.
He always looks like he's studying like the defense, or the offense from what they're doing. It seems like he's constantly trying to adjust on the sideline. Like you can see the wheels turn where Don Brown was just like, no, you stand there, you do this.
And I'm going to blitz.
Yes. Yeah. All the time.
Yeah. So. I'm not going to not blitz. So don't ask me. So I mean, it helps when you have a guy like Aiden Hutchinson who can basically take care of one side of the the offensive line, but we're definitely using him in a lot of different ways, and it's just fun to watch. What I'm interested to see is, okay, because there's been a lot of talk, like, and I know, again, we can talk about this Michigan quarterback situation to death. Nothing probably changes until they lose a game. But it's like, the bye week is a lot of times when these things happen, right? Because like if it's close in practice, like you might as well pull the trigger if JJ's actually better.
Yeah, this would be the week to do that. I kind of was Northwestern. But Northwestern's kind of a warm-up game, you would hope.
That's what I mean. You are better than Northwestern. You might as well just let him loose against Northwestern if you feel like he might be better. If you feel like you just need to see him live and let him go out there and play, like I would just, if you're going to do it, I'd do it now. If you're not going to do it now, then you're probably not going to do it unless McNamara gets hurt or you lose a game, is the way I look at it.
Yeah, you're going to start getting into the heart of the gauntlet of the schedule. So it's like you got to take care of business now. Give them some warm-up games with Maryland and Northwestern, and then before you hit the big ones.
Yeah, I mean, and then you got Michigan State in 3 weeks from now. So if you feel like JJ is going to be the guy that's going to get you over the top against the better teams, not that. I mean, again, it's hard though when you're a 6-0 team and your quarterback's only thrown one interception.
Yeah, that's tough.
So it's not like the close games have not really been his fault. You know what I mean? And he just went on the road and beat a tough team on the road. He went out and he pretty much did real well against Wisconsin in the second half. Like,
and JJ's going to throw picks. Like that's like he's going.
You would think.
I mean, he's more aggressive in the air. Cade's just kind of like that guy. He's like, only my team's going to get it or nobody's going to get it. And very rarely, obviously we saw in last where it was like pretty much an awful pass. But in retrospect, like he doesn't do that kind of thing. Like he's very conservative with the ball. He thinks before he makes that decision. And which is also impressive that he's only been sacked once despite that kind of thought process for him.
Right.
So it's hard to bench a guy in this situation, but like JJ will bring that running aspect to the game. He's got like those fresh young legs.
The problem is it's kind of where like the Bears were with Justin Fields this year. I don't think you can change. So I don't think you can go to JJ McCarthy and then go back. Like I think if you're going to him, then you go to him all the way. I was talking to my dad about this, and he said if you were going to go to him then this year, like as the starter, unless there's an injury or just McNamara just completely sucks. If you're going to go to him, then you should have just done it at the beginning of the season. Like you should have started him week 1, because at that point, then by now he's probably ready. You know what I mean? Like he's good to go. The problem is if you're Harbaugh, even if you think that's probably what's best for the long-term development of your team, it might not. You might have lost again, against Nebraska this past week if he's the quarterback the whole week. You might have lost to Rutgers. You know what I mean? You might have lost a game that you shouldn't have lost because of that. So I don't think you can really take that risk if you're Jim Harbaugh right now. At least maybe you can now, but at the beginning of the year, you definitely couldn't because, you had your job on the line for a while there.
Yeah, you're gonna have growing pains if you put a young guy in that's played high school competition his whole life. So it's like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough situation. I really don't. I mean, you're happy that you have two good quarterbacks like that, two guys you feel good about, but you also, I mean, as a fan, you sit there and you see all the talent in McCarthy, and you're like, man, you'd love to just see
this sometimes more.
You'd love to see him play like a full like game that matters, like with the starters and like throw the ball. You know what I mean? Like do all that. So we'll see. I think. I don't know if you're gonna make a change. Now would be the time. So
yeah, pull the trigger, man. So, all right. Well, we're gonna check back in tomorrow, and we'll